Hi, everyone. I'm Daniel, and today we're going to be talking about asset cards in Arkham Horror, the card game that evade. Why am I doing such a silly thing? I was looking at a narrow part of the card pool. Well, it turns out that the designers have dedicated quite a few cards, at least in my imagination so far, that do the evade thing, especially in Mystic. And it doesn't seem like people really like these cards. They don't play them all that often in the decks that I've seen online in particular. I like evading. I think evading is good. But I'm also a little bit of a skeptic about these assets, and let's talk about why. Okay, first off, evading is good. Evading is something that you do in order to get a big enemy off of your investigator, especially bosses, because you don't want them to attack you during the enemy phase. Why might that be? Because you can't actually kill them in just one turn. Now, in some investigators, you can, in some larger player counts, you can, but there's often a lot of health to chew through, and just doing an evade and eliminating the possibility that they attack you and maybe some other worse things is really good. That's for bosses. For smaller enemies, it's maybe a little bit less useful. It can be good if you're person who's getting clues and can't really fight enemies is off in the corner somewhere, draws an enemy, or hunter comes in or something like that. Then it might be good to have an ability to evade every now and then. But that's sort of a problem in the first place. Like, why are they off on their own? And that's okay. There's a lot of investigators that have the ability to evade because they have a large agility score. They have a 4 or 5. Ursula Downs, Finn Edwards, Monterey Jack. A lot of these investigators don't really want to fight, but they can evade in a pinch, which lets them go off on their own. The problem here is that it doesn't always mean that that's their main game plan. Maybe Lucius Galloway. But for a lot of other investigators, it's kind of a panic button. It's not something they want to do over and over again. So I think that evading is really clutch in a lot of circumstances, but isn't something that is your main way of dealing with enemies. And assets are the kinds of cards that say, I have some foresight here. I'm going to play a card this turn so that next turn or sometime in the future, I'm already more prepared to deal with whatever comes up. When it comes to investigating with assets, this is really nice because it usually gives you a bonus. Maybe it's there for quite a few rounds. Grim Memoir, right, also can be refilled. You get to draw a lot of cards. It's really nice to have investigate assets that either give you some other bonus or maybe draw you cards. Maybe they get you extra clues like fingerprint kit. That's like the reason to play these assets. Weapons are, of course, even more important because it's the most useful way to get plus damage. So most enemies have 2 to 3 health, maybe more, and you don't want to spend your whole time doing basic fights. You can do basic investigates every now and then. That's fine. Basic fights, pretty bad. So you need assets there. And, investigates are usually boosted by assets just because you're doing it so often, right? It's nice to have something in play. Evading, on the other hand, is not the same thing. Evading is something you don't want to do all the time because you don't always have enemies and it's not the best way to deal with them. I love using cards that evade that are events. Can really get you out of a big pickle. Maybe you're going to evade multiple things at once using an event, but that event goes away and then you're done with it, and you didn't spend anything up front to make that happen. Skill cards that evade, also really good. Survival Instinct. I know I'm saying a lot of cards here. I could be looking at them right here with you on Arkham DB, or Arkham Build, rather. Oof, Arkham Build. But I really want to get into the meat of this video, which is looking at the assets that evade. So, skill cards, good. Event cards, good for this. But what do the designers have to offer us as far as asset cards that evade? So I just typed in Arkham Build here, all asset cards that have the word evade in them. I know that I could sort this by all of the cards that have action type evade. But I actually don't really want that either. I want to see anything that does an evade basically more than once. So I'm going to throw out things like handcuffs that you have been looking at here. This is an event. I know it's an asset. It's an event. It is a one-time use evade. It's really good, but it is an event for the purposes of what we're talking about. Eon chart is a card that allows you to evade more than once as an extra action. So it gives you an extra action. You can choose it to do anything really, move, evade, or investigate. The evade is kind of nice to get that action back from the evade, but it doesn't give you anything special. It's just another action. So it's not really what I'm looking at in depth either. Blur, however, this one is much more interesting. Check out what Blur gives you. First off, it's limited in use, but maybe that's okay. We're going to come back to that issue later. 3 charges. So 3 times after you've played this, you get to get a bonus to your evade, and there's this potential you can use it as a spell for Mystic. So let's take that out of the equation for the discussion. Really, it's more about why am I doing this, right, at all, rather than the bonuses that this gives you for, hey, Mystics can play this too. Okay, so it gives you +1 skill value, so it's automatically better than just doing a basic evade. And if you succeed, you can take an additional action. So it's giving you the action back from the evade. That sounds like an Eon chart, kind of. I mean, they're both level 1 cards. It's just that Eon chart only gives you whatever basic evade you have. Untabooed, it could be anything. But Blur gives you that +1, which is really nice. Both 3 times, so that's kind of funny. They're very similar. Upgraded Blur is even better. This gives you +2 skill value, and now you get the actions back. So this is like, to me, the gold standard of why would I do this? It's taking up a slot in Rogue in particular. Mystic, different story. We'll come back to that. That is pretty uncontested and helps you do the evasion thing. Um, uh, this is reasonable in Rogue because there's many other reasons to evade. Pickpocketing fuels all of your economy. String along, same idea. Investigators like Kimani Jones, Lucius Galloway, off-class rogue, that are interested in using the evasion to solve enemies on the board, but also to make their deck do a lot of things. +2 skill value helps you with things like succeeding by a bunch, right? So that's kind of a good reason to play these cards. It's not doing anything extra, anything fancy here. It's just giving you back the action and giving you some benefits that fit into your overall deck. So this is a good one. We'll come back to these later and think about them in relationship to other versions of what else you get from the evade with these assets. Remember, you don't have to use these every turn. You're kind of not meant to. You could recharge them, but they're used here on any enemy, and you're just going to say, hey, this is a good spot for this. All right, handcuffs doesn't count. These things are also kind of odd. Pen of the Queen is an automatic evade. I'm not super interested in that. Microscope is just a benefit for evading. Dial of Ancients, we'll look at the upgraded one. Disc of Exomna doesn't count. Okay, let's look at this one. Archaic Glyphs, Prophecy Foretold. This is one of the options to upgrade your level 0 Archaic Glyphs into if you have level 3 Seeker access. So this one gives you an Investigate, and if you succeed, you can automatically evade an enemy that's engaged with you. So it's kind of backwards, right? This is not an evade action. It's an investigate action that gives you a free evade. So you're getting a clue and getting an enemy off of you. Really nice to not have to use all the time, but it is something in your back pocket to deal with even elite enemies, right? This is breaking and entering, a very strong card that people like on a stick. 3 times. Now, is it worth the 3 XP? You know, we just looked at the level 4 Blur, which is not exactly the same thing, right? That one gives you the action back for anything. This one kind of refunds the action by giving you a clue, if you think about it in a weird way. Plus, you're using, you know, probably a skill that you're better at. It's good. I've seen this in practice, and when the Seeker is the best at evading a large elite enemy because of this card, it's kind of funny. And it's like, oh yeah, okay, we can make use of it in this team, in this deck. That's a good one. All right, we've got Dial of Ancients, the level 4 version that allows you to fight or evade. This one basically is giving you a damage onto the enemy if you succeed, and there's some business here about canceling the token and revealing a new one if you're maybe going to fail. So it's unlimited. I think the charges aren't required to do the action itself. Yeah, that seems right. So it's basically an evade that does a damage. The fight part is there too, but it's an evade that does the damage. There's no bonus for the skill test, but it gives you something back, which might be useful again against elite enemies, which I think is really nice. This one is a pretty simple card. Strange Solution upgrades to just spend a supply. You have 4 uses here, and evade with base skill 6. That's it. Many Seekers have like a base of 2, maybe 3, and this gives you basically +3, +4, 4 times. Nice if you need a panic button. 4 XP is not nothing though, so it doesn't give you anything else back. It's just make sure you can pass the test. It is slotless compared to these other ones, so that's kind of nice, but I would really have to think about why I need this in my deck if I can't solve the problem some other way, or if I have some synergy that would be better with this. Like, is this something for Lucius Galloway? You can use String Along with it or something and be... No, I mean, I guess not. That's only... He's base 5, right? So it gives you +1, and String Along does that too. Never mind. This is bad for him. Use it in Daisy Walker. Okay. Archive of Conduits. This one is one that allows you to automatically evade the enemy. This is not what I'm talking about here. Okay, String Along, it isn't actually initiating skill tests, but it's a cool mechanic as part of evade good, right? And you can combine it with anything we've seen here. Stealth, though, this is the level 0 stealth. It's pretty bad. This one says you get an asset into play. It has no uses, so you're intended to use this a lot. So for a card in your deck, 2 resources and an action, you can exhaust it. The chosen enemy gets -2 evade for this evasion attempt, which is better than +2 to your skill, because you might get it down to 0. If you successfully evade the enemy, disengage with it, do not exhaust it. Until the end of your turn, it can't engage you. What that means is it disengages from you and then immediately engages anything else that might be at your location. So another investigator, it'll come back to you at the end of your turn if you're still there and no one else is there. It doesn't turn off hunters. It's a pretty bad effect if you're not using the level 3 version, which turns this into, we'll just look at it right now, into a lightning bolt. So during your turn, you get to do this, and this is quite good with other shenanigans. It's not just for Kamani Jones. I used this in Skids. It was really good. You're doing this in decks that want to be disengaged from the enemy. It's giving you that extra action to do it. It's kind of a weird card if you compare this to Blur, which is just straight up you evade. But this one has unlimited uses, so you really want to think about why you might want to do an evade over and over again, and not worry about spending an action on it. It's a strange card, but there are decks where it makes sense. Okay. Disguise is kind of the quintessential new evade card. We got this a couple of cycles ago. And this one is a slotless item, not an item, slotless talent that allows you to evade with a bonus. And if you succeed and the evaded enemy is non-elite, it does not ready during the next upkeep phase. So it's this freeze effect where it will stay exhausted and it won't engage anyone during upkeep. And then next round, you can still be at that location. It won't be engaged with you. You can do whatever you wanted to do there and then leave before it readies again. Really good effect if you are planning on doing all of those things, staying there and then moving again next round. Especially if it's a non-hunter, then you've basically solved the enemy for one action instead of needing to fight an enemy, which might take a little bit more out of you. The +2 is nothing to turn your nose up at either. That works on elite enemies, so it's not bad. The problem is, in my opinion, you don't really want to evade non-elite enemies and leave them behind, for example, too often. I would rather have something that works and does a lot more with elite enemies. But I'm not unhappy to have this in play, right? This seems like something you can make some use out of, especially if you're doing your other rogue shenanigans. And that's what's so interesting about this discussion is a lot of it depends on if you have access to cards like pickpocketing, string along, even things like Lucky Cigarette Case that reward you for the evade more than just the enemies no longer engage with me, which is admittedly good, but it's a problem you need to solve later. It might be a problem that you need to solve right now if you're playing campaigns that have enemies that are tough to deal with, except for via evasion. Either their evade score is very low, or you just don't want to defeat them. We're thinking about the Forgotten Age. There's a lot of enemies I think in Drowned City also that kind of care about you evading them. But it's tricky to think about like, okay, is this the best way to deal with the problem? And freezing them for a slotless asset is admittedly good, but maybe we can do more universally better. Damning Testimony isn't an evade, but it's very similar to the archaic glyphs we saw earlier. If you upgrade and get this extort on it, you may spend an evidence to automatically evade the chosen enemy. Again, that works nicely with elites. I know I'm talking so much about elite enemies here, but the reality in my experience is those are the ones that need the evade, that I'm spending my basic action to try to evade. And it's not that I don't want to evade the other ones, if I'm a rogue especially, but I would love for the extra abilities on these assets to work on the things that I might be evading over and over again. Okay. It's also worth saying like dirty fighting it's down here. Also reason to do the evades. Okay. Moving on to suggestion. This is another spell asset that takes up an arcane slot. Fine in rogues. And this one you add your willpower to your skill value for evasion temp, which is usually agility. And if you don't succeed by at least two, you remove a charge. So you basically have three misses, I guess, at not succeeding by two. But this is a number big card. This is just the enemy has a 4 evade. I need to get up some large amount here, especially if you're playing this in Safina, Keimani, not bad in Lucis, really. You're at 7. A lot of investigators can get up a fairly good amount. I think only in Winifred am I like, adding 1 to 5 is not that great. But the card does basically just do that. Once per round, like lockpicks, I'm evading something big. And I think for that, it's good. Obscure, this is a new one, and this one gives you like a free fight or evade. So the evade is where we're interested here. It's just a weird card. It's giving you an extra action, which, as we said before, refunding your actions for evading, that's pretty good. But your base skill value is something kind of random. And there's limited uses here too, although if you're playing it, you're probably wanting to continually seal that 0. It's just nice to have, I guess, on tap that it's relatively cheap. It's 2 resources to just say, hey, once I've done this, now I'll just seal another 0 afterwards. Just like go reveal a new location or something. It's weird. I haven't really figured out why you would want to do this. The fight, I guess, part is maybe important too. Okay. I believe there's a ruling here that you can use a fight or evade on an asset or event, which I kind of hate being a ruling, but I think that's what they've designed for. Okay, these other things don't really count. I mentioned dirty fighting just because it is a benefit for the evasion, right? And I guess 25 automatic upgraded 1 is 2. This one gives you basically an extra action to fight after you evade. Okay, we talked about stealth. There's an upgraded suggestion. This one, the only difference is that the charges are not really used for uses. Instead, it's used for canceling attacks, which is like a different part of the card. It's like it feels like these things don't go together. They kind of do. Obviously, you remove the charge still, but it's still useful after it's run out of charges. You can still do the evade forever. So it's a good card. Again, if those numbers are good. All right, then we get into Mystics. So let's talk about Mystics and why they're different from Rogues. Rogues, as I said before, have innate reasons to want to evade. And it's not just they want to evade sometimes, they want to evade often, right? They're using it as part of their engine. Mystics are not that. One mystic, Dexter, of course, can do that. He has off-class rogue, so he can play things like dirty fighting. He can use the 25 automatic that we just saw. But for mystics, what they're looking at is a whole host of assets that do something, right? Their spells are what do something in the game. They have Rite of Seeking, an investigate asset. They have Shriveling, a fight asset. And they all take up these arcane slots, so they can get very contested. The designers decided to print a whole bunch of evade spells. And actually, it's not that many. We're looking at them right here. The main ones are Mists of Relia, Ineffable Truth, and Shroud of Shadows. Right? The problem is you only have 2 arcane slots. If you need an asset to evade things, you're kind of giving up on either using your arcane slots for investigating or fighting, whichever one it might be, or you're kind of blocking something else in your deck. Think about it this way. Let's say you're a fighter and you really or Clover, doesn't matter, I think, for our purposes here. And what you really want to do is make sure you have enough stuff, enough bullets, as it were, charges, spells that fight. And once your Shriveling runs out, you need to either play a new one or a different copy of something that's similar. So an Azure Flame, Brand of Cthulhu, whatever it might be. And those need to be kind of ready at hand. You could not play those and just play Ineffable Truth or Mists of Relia as your way of dealing with enemies, but then you actually do need to deal with enemies in the usual way. Why am I bringing this up? Because, Guardians have to run a lot of weapons, and once they get rid of one weapon, they play another one. Rogues, a lot of these cards that are evading are either slotless, so it's not contesting with other things they're trying to do, or they're taking up things like an arcane slot that they don't care about. For mystics, these cards are pretty decent, but at what cost? What am I taking out of my deck instead? Let's talk about this one, which I think is one of the better ones. And you can think about Blur too, because it's also Mystic access. So you need these things in play, and is it doing enough for you, right? So I'm expecting that these should be better than the things that Rogue gets because they want to evade anyway. Ineffable Truth, I think, is a pretty good card. It allows you to evade, and if you succeed, you're dealing damage. So it's a lot like that Dial of Ancients that we saw earlier, except for this one's at level 0, and it has some uses. There's some downsides, right? There's no bonus on this, but there are upgraded versions. So the level 3 version does give you +2. That's the only difference. And level 5 gives you +3, and if you succeed, deal 2 damage to the evaded enemy. And there's good reasons to pick this just to deal damage, because maybe it's easier to evade rather than to fight. Or maybe, I don't know, maybe you want both, right? You're turning off Retaliate on an enemy. Good reasons to do evasion, right? Yeah, this isn't a weapon though, right? It only is going to help the whole team. I think this is maybe better in 3 or 4 player, where you're like, hey, I can soften up the enemy a bit, and then your main fighter actually does all the rest of the damage, and that's pretty good, especially since now it's no longer engaged with anyone. So I kind of like this. It also works on basically everything. A little baby version of this now takes up a hand slot, right? So Sword Cane allows you to just do an evade attempt, and there's the extra action business here too that we won't get into, but this is really nice for using an uncontested slot. So I have my Shriveling, my Rite of Seeking, whatever it might be, in my arcane slots, but my hand slot is for the Sword Cane. Upgraded version helps wither down the enemy as well. Speaking of wither, this is just here because it says evade on it. That's not actually what that card does. It just reduces the evade value of an enemy, so forget it. Okay, the other one that we got pretty early in the game's lifespan was Mists of Relia. This is 4 charges, so more than what we got for Ineffable Truth. And this one gives you the benefit of after you evade the enemy, you may move. You get to hightail it out of town. We saw something like this before. Did we? No. What I said was that you can use the extra action to move out with Blur. You can use the disguise to essentially move out later if you need to, but we haven't gotten a direct move. It can be a bit awkward because maybe you don't want to move. Maybe you want to evade the enemy and then get the clues there and then move. A little awkward, but at level 0, it's pretty decent, especially since it has a lot of charges. Upgraded version gives you +1, only level 2 here. The other ones were level 3. And you get to move. Upgraded one, level 4 here. 5 charges this time. You get +3 for the evasion attempt. That's a lot. If you succeed, you get the same move as before. If a skull cultist tablet elder thing autofail symbol is revealed, choose and discard a card from your hand. Interestingly, each of the 3 Mists of Relia have the exact same drawback. That's different from Ineffable Truth, where the level 5 version made you lose 2 resources. So it's a little bit friendlier of a card, but maybe not as powerful. The other one we got is Shroud of Shadows. And I think this card is underrated as well. I'm a bit embarrassed to say I've never played it. So how could I say it's underrated? But it reads really good. So think about the same thing that Miss Aurelia does. That one allows you to move away. So an enemy is exhausted at your location, you move away, and if it's a hunter, it's not to catch up to you for a couple of rounds, right? Certainly not until the next round if you're stuck at that next new location, but you could move even further away. Now, Shroud of Shadows does kind of the same thing, except for if the enemy is non-elite, you move that enemy to a connecting location. So now you're still one location away, kind of that breathing room that you need from hunters especially. I can think of a lot of scenarios where an enemy spawns in some kind of bottleneck and everyone kind of needs to slowly make their way through. You can evade an enemy, kick it back the other direction, and now it's really easy to move through. If you draw a curse token, then you may move to a connecting location too. Now you've put like a whole other location in between the enemy and you if you draw that curse. So that's really good if you're trying to just get away from enemies. If you're trying to fight them, well, it's not very good. And that's kind of why I think it works only on non-elites. I mean, it has to work on non-elites only because that would break some scenarios, moving elite enemies around. But I think it's a really nice idea to use this on the small guys. If it's already in play and if you, I don't know, really find space for this in your deck, this just sounds so great. Like it's a great ability. But I've never found a reason for adding it to my deck. I know it sounds so contradictory, but it's just not going to win you scenarios until it's necessary. It's like one of those things where the new card Memories of a Former Life, which allows you to bring in something from outside your collection, it feels really good to be like, what we need right now is this card. But it's in your deck all the time, and you don't always need this. It would really have to fit with other kinds of things you're doing for it to be worth it in the long run. Upgraded one gives you +2. Extra curses makes you move extra times. Again, reading the card, I'm like, well, I can think of a lot of scenarios that would have saved so much if I could make that work. But I don't know if I want to put 4 XP into a card that only works as a tech card. Okay, in the Scarlet Keys, we finally got another version of this that is an evade, not in a spell slot, not an arcane slot. So it's part of a cycle as well. And this one is basically the benefit here is that you're allowed to evade things that are not engaged with you. So they could be at your location, not engaged with you, or at a connecting location, again, not engaged with you. That's really powerful. In fact, that actually is worth doing more than once. What's missing here? Non-elite. Doesn't say non-elite. Any enemy at your location or connecting location. So if you're being chased by a big boss, this allows you to leave a lot of breathing room, and you don't need to go through the whole evade lock every single round where you're just beginning your turn, evading the big thing, and then doing something else with your turn, needing to stay there because you are the way that you are solving the problem of the elite enemy. You need to evade it again next round. Um, this allows you to not worry about that until it catches up again within one location from you. Think about all the hunter enemies that you can just stop in their tracks before they come in and hit you. You can deal with them first. Why don't people play this? Probably because the Doom is tough and succeeding by two is kind of weird to remove the Doom. So, um, yeah, I think this is actually a pretty good asset. Okay, we have upgraded things. We saw all of them, I think, except for Swordcade. I mentioned that it's fast now, gives you +1 skill value. Upgraded Onyx Pentacle. This one gives you +3 skill value. What are the +1 for the level 0? So this one gives you like potentially +4 if you're using agility. That's really good for dealing with bosses. Again, I kind of want to have other synergy for evasion to make this a good card. All right, let's move on to survivors. They're kind of our last ones. We have hope. This is an automatic evade or evade at base 5, which is kind of like the strange solution, but it works once per round, every round. It's part of the whole cat synergy and increase your base value synergy. I think this is good too. It's cheap. It doesn't really cost you much to have it in your deck. It doesn't take up a slot. And if it's in play, I think you use it. Um, it's yeah, I think this is actually quite good if you're thinking about doing. I mean, you don't have a choice, right? You've whichever cat you get. But um, if it's in play, I think it's good, right? Okay. Again, survivors are special because they don't care about evasion in quite the same way, but they do have a lot of investigators who do care about making evade actions. So Rita, Silas, they're good. And then I think as generalists, survivors are maybe the ones who are like, hey, I'll do the evade. I'll do the dumb evade of the big enemy. That's fine. Anchor chain, newest one. This is part of a set, right? We have 3 cards: Handhook, Nautical Charts, Anchor Chain, that all have this weird ability where you can use it as an asset in your hand or an event, sorry, an asset in play that you already spent the 3 resources, the action to play it, or you can do this if it's in your hand as kind of a one-shot thing. And then you might be able to get it back with all of your nonsense survivor recursion. Okay, what does it do? You exhaust it, so once per round, you get +1 for the evasion attempt. If you successfully evade a non-elite enemy, you can discard a card from hand to prevent that enemy from readying. During the next upkeep phase, it's the same freeze effect that we saw earlier on Disguise. But you need to pay a card for it, which might not be a big deal. But I don't really feel that good about this card as an asset. Maybe there's a particularly annoying enemy that I need to stay around here with it, so I want to keep it from readying. But I don't know if I want to spend cards every round to do this. Like, how often is it that important for me to do the evade? Now, yes, Nautical Charts is kind of busted because getting clues is good and cards being deductions is really good. But this is taking up a hand slot, right? Maybe you have this and Nautical Charts, and there you go. You can deal with every enemy. But I think most of the time you don't really want to discard a card. I think you would rather evade the enemy, kill it, or just leave. I would rather have a different way of evading that's not junking up my hand slot. I actually don't value the freeze part that much. Um, I think I would as a tech card for Pit Vipers and Forgotten Age for some of their annoying enemies that you can't really kill. But the fact that it's non-elite only, I know I'm so stuck on that, but I don't know. What if you fail a test, by the way? Kind of sucks. Okay, these things are not really what I'm talking about. They're not tests. This is this is a test. Fire extinguisher one is a test, but it's a one-time test, right? It's an event. Oh, I should mention, I like this card as an event. We have a different version of it, Catch, which really is an event. But this one I think is just, it's in my hand. It costs 0. I discard it. I'll discard another card to prevent the enemy from readying. That's probably fine. Uh, this is also not what I'm talking about. One-shot effects are not really assets. And that's kind of the end. We have a couple other special ones to talk about. Silas's Net is a signature card, obviously for Silas Marsh. It looks a lot like Anchor Chain in that um, it's a hand slot item that evades. But this one cares about you committing skills, and then it allows you to evade multiple enemies, which could be elite, could be non-elite, doesn't matter. And you can get it back into your hand if you want. So that's I've played the card enough to say that you do play it when it shows up, but it's not really what you want to do with your turn. You'd rather play his harpoon, but it's fine. It does do the job. It kind of has a way of bringing it back, right? If you so it doesn't really clog up the hand slot. Hyperphysical Shotcaster does have an evade on it. If you want to put in the translocator down here, you can do something interesting. It looks like it's the Shroud of Shadows Miss Aurelia thing where you can either move yourself or a non-elite enemy to a connecting location as before or after the attempt. It's like all these things rolled into one. So that's good, but this is an expensive hand slot item, so it's not great. So that's kind of it. Yeah, we don't have anything else that evades, and I'm kind of left with mostly the same thing I saw before. I don't love the survivor option here, but I like the survivor skills, the stunning blow, survival instinct, expeditious retreat, for doing these as kind of one shot. If I have to do evasion attempts that are doing a whole lot of extra things more than once or twice, then something's wrong. I'd rather something's wrong where I'm teching for a campaign. I'd rather do something that is just a little bit more reliable and maybe whittles down a big enemy, an elite enemy in particular, right? So this card might be our way of dealing with an elite enemy. And I get to do it over 3 rounds, maybe even more than that. I've had great success with Ineffable Truth. And Miss Aurelia, I think, is fine too. It's just that this feels a little. Does it really solve the problem or not? Who knows, right? Maybe just getting away from Murder Ball is fine. But I would have loved for something like Miss to have the survival instinct text, which I should just bring up so people know what I'm talking about. I have to change some stuff here. This allows you to evade everything that you were engaged with and then move away. So this solves the whole buildup of enemies that can happen, and then you get away. Miss Aurelia allows you to evade one enemy, and now you've broken up the bunch, which I guess is okay, but now what do you do with the other enemies you were engaged with? So yeah, let's go back to what we were before. We don't have anything like that as an asset, which I guess makes sense because it would be kind of busted if you could do that multiple times. But we do get some interesting benefits. And personally, I like the ones that deal with large problems the best. Big skill value, like in Suggestion, fits in really well with all of our rogue evade shenanigans. Something like Blur gives you some actions back. Really nice. But to me, evading is not it feels like it needs to be more of an event-based play style because it's not something you want to do all the time, not something you need to do all the time, hopefully. But when you do need to do it, you'd like to get a lot of value out of it. Um, Again, the rogues are going to maybe benefit from this the most. I still need to give disguise a better shot. I've just found that this is pretty expensive, and I'm not sure this is what I want to do. I feel like I have other options, but it reads okay. Maybe I need to try this in someone like Lucius or something, but he might want to hang around. Well, I mean, I guess that's okay. You could use it with string along. I don't know. If you like evading enemies, let me know down in the comments which of these assets, if any, you play, if that's kind of your game plan. Personally, if you're working with dirty fighting, you want something that lasts forever, or you can come up with something else. If you're fighting, right, you kind of need, it's weird because you need the things to fight with, but you also need the things to evade with. So you end up being a bit asset heavy. Um, the Mystic problem is going to just be based on slots. To me, they're all like fine. I guess I could have mentioned some servitor can evade things too. It's not really what I'm looking for in this video, but I think these like can do the job, but it always feels like I'm giving up something else in my slots. Like I've never found a mystic that's just like I'm the evade mystic. There's just nothing in the card pool that supports that. So either you do it in Dexter or maybe Safina with some of these lower level ones, and lean into the rogue side. But now it doesn't really feel like it's a mystic card anymore. I mean, it's a mystic card, but it's not really like usable in other investigators. So just some food for thought. All right, that's my whirlwind look through at assets that evade, and I think yeah, my conclusion still I don't know if these were all worth printing, and you just need a lot of other synergy to make you rely on this sort of card. That's it. I'll see you in the next video.